Good space time, y'all. In this episode of the Citizen Cosmos podcast, I speak with Dan Edlebeck from Say Network. We discuss DeFi situation and challenges, centralized exchanges, trends in decentralization, and onboarding people, the interaction of ecosystems with each other in the future, bandwidth and order books, censorship, and airdrops.
We need to think out of our own kind of bubble and think about the nearly 8 billion people on the planet. The current system as it's set up with private key management, with onboarding into crypto, is still not good enough to be able to get billions of people using crypto.
I'm not gonna brag on about knowing the future, but I think I was not the only one, and there's been hundreds of people, and all of us knew that, right? That the centralized exchanges are not reliable.
We are building a blockchain for deep liquidity and better trading experiences on chain, and we're doing it with fast execution and being able to match the user experience that you get on centralized exchanges.
I have seen many users that have been using crypto for a while, finding it a bit difficult to go back to the banking system and to understand that they need to call somebody, in order to sometimes to put a transaction through. Before we rock it off into our next episode, here are some news from the sponsor of this episode, the Cyber Congress DAO. The foundation has started its delegations policy for validators on the Bostrom blockchain, and the Space Pussy network was launched, with 96% of its supply to be dropped to various Cosmos ecosystem chains. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Cosmos podcast. And today I have one of my favorite guests. I'm not going to be shy to admit that. Dan. Hi, man. Welcome to the show again and again and again and again and again. How are you?
Thanks a lot, Serge. Great, man. Good to be on Citizen Cosmos. Just like I've seen Rage Against the Machine 3 times, this is my third time on the podcast.
Yeah, for everybody who doesn't understand what's going on, just before the recording, Rage Against the Machine, my favorite bands. I have a tattoo to prove it. And it turns out Dan here has been going to Rage Against the Machine concerts one after another while I've just been dreaming about it. So, hey. Dan, since we last had you on the show, there has been a lot of changes in your professional life, and I guess in your personal life as well, as far as I know anyways. Do you want to introduce yourself once again and tell us what you're busy with these days? What has been the changes to your story so far over the past half a year or so since we last had you on, maybe a bit more already? So all yours, Dan.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Serge. Yeah, it's been over a year since I think we were on, and a lot has changed, both personally and professionally. But one thing has not changed. I'm a cosmonaut. I really strongly believe in our vision of what we're building with the Internet of Blockchains, and the architecture and the strength of IBC, I think, has only been proven and more resilient, especially with a lot of bridges that have proven to be less reliable or centralized. And IBC has been the best bridge out there. I'm still working in the Cosmos space. So big changes in my life on the professional level. I'm helping to lead Say. Say is a layer 1 blockchain optimized for trading and decentralized exchanges, really helping to power DeFi and take it into the next generation for strong founders. And then on the personal level, I'm in Puerto Rico, and you can see some of the stuff in the background. We're getting ready for a baby, becoming a father in January. So lots of new developments on the personal and professional front. But one thing is the same. I love being on Citizen Cosmos, so happy to be here, sir.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a shame the baby stuff is taking all the space up, but I'm sure there is still some left. No, I'm joking. It's really cool. And congratulations, of course, because that is amazing news. And you cosmonaut bringing into the world. Actually, funny story, as we are on the subject, just this morning, my developer texted me. He was asking for a contact from somebody in Cosmos to talk about Cosm-Wasm, basic stuff. And I was saying, okay, I'll do it today. And then he was saying, I was just telling my son, he's like 6 or 7, that because his son was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm just getting from Serge a contact from a guy from Cosmos to talk from something about it. And he's like, a guy from Cosmos? Wow, can you ask him? All this, he start going, ask him all this stuff. He's from Cosmos, So babies are a blessing.
It's from the future, bro.
Yeah, man.
Well, the FBI's confirmed that we're seeing UFOs everywhere. So,
man, I mean, you're in Puerto Rico, not in the States. So, no UFOs anymore. No Area 52 or 51 or 57 anymore.
Well, we're not very far from the Bermuda Triangle. In fact, just 3 miles down the road in Old San Juan, we're at the edge of it.
Right, right. So, by the way, there is something I found out. So, where I'm based in Madeira, I didn't know. I thought that from here, if I put a straight line to the west, I will get to the America. But actually, it's Bermuda that is actually a direct straight line from me. So, if I look out the window directly, I can just see you. Just see you. Man, last we spoke, which was apparently over a year ago, man, time flies. You were busy with building decentralized VPN solutions. And, well, you know what? I'm going to call it a bit differently. Decentralized resilient solutions to help us to get online in a safer way and browse content in a safer way and a more private way, I guess, one of the most important things. And DeFi is, if not more, but definitely not less of an important subject, in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit about DeFi. How, in your opinion, the current situation on the market? Of course, we had just the FTX thing just recently, and before that, and this was after we spoke, the whole Luna thing, and now there is Blockfolio and whatnot. What's your opinion, first of all, on all the centralized exchanges shit that's going on, bro?
Yeah, I mean, and you also didn't mention Three Arrows Capital. So the industry has been through a lot, right? 2022 has been an incredibly rough year. And I think we probably spoke towards the end of 2021. I'd have to double check, but that sounds about right. And really, since the beginning of this year, I've been focused on DeFi, helping to lead and build out Say. And DeFi has come a long way, but still has a long way to go. Remember back in the days, Serge, when people were playing on Ethereum in like 2017, there was like Ether Delta, and it was like the only decentralized exchange, and it was weird as hell, and it had the ugliest interface, and it was slow, and your orders wouldn't go through, and it had an order book on it, and it was crazy.
But you could trade all the shit tokens on there that were never real. Sorry to interrupt you, man. But it brought so many memories. I was like, wow, Ether Delta. Sorry, go on, man.
No, 100% right. But that's also what you're talking about, Serge, is a huge benefit and a huge power that DeFi brings. You're talking about permissionlessness. Anyone could list tokens with the smart contract and have them be tradable on Ether Delta. So that was an incredible innovation, but DeFi absolutely sucked back then. And then we got IDEX and we got a few other decentralized exchanges, but they didn't gain much traction. And over time, more and more came out. And really we saw DeFi started to take off right in 2020 with DeFi Summer. And that's when Uniswap started to take off and people started to embrace DeFi and being able to kind of trade their own assets within their own custody. And that's where the automated market maker, the AMM model, took off. But DeFi still has a very long way to go. And that's why we're building Say, and we can get into more of that in a little bit. But the original question, Serge, was around FTX, right? And relying on centralized companies. And this isn't the first time we've seen this. We've seen Cryptsy, we've seen Cryptopia, we've seen Quadriga. These centralized exchanges, we're relying on one or very few actors with all of our trust to be able to maintain and custody our funds and act ethically. And the ethos of what we're building in DeFi is don't trust, verify, and to be able to have open and transparent systems. So it's really messed up what Sam did and the negative impacts it's going to have on our industry in the immediate term and in the mid and long term. But in a way, it's going to have a positive impact in the long run because it's going to force our hand to embracing DeFi because couldn't have been a bigger actor that did more harm to the space in one shot than Sam did.
Let me put my favorite mask on. This time I'm going to be devil's advocate for the whole industry, not just to you, and for myself included, actually. You mentioned the likes of Cryptopia, Cryptsy, and there has been many, many more along the line. I mean, Mt. Gox, starting with Mt. Gox many, many, many years ago. If we know all that and we knew all that, and, I'm not going to brag on about knowing the future, but I think I was not the only one. And there's been hundreds of people, and all of us knew that, right? That the centralized exchanges are not reliable. Sooner or later, they're going to drop the market. It's just a matter of waiting. Why do we keep on going back to centralized exchanges? Well, maybe not all of us, and I don't want to speak for everybody, of course, but most users, by the looks of it, keep on going back to those exchanges, knowing the dangers, knowing about not your keys, not your coins. And I mean, this is just like a meme already by now, not even in the crypto world, even outside of it. And what's the reason? What's drawing people back?
Well, there's two main reasons. They both have to do with functionality, but one has to do with user experience and one has to do with performance. So it's a very clear reason, Serge. The main reason that we're building Say is because the current layer one blockchains, the current monolithic or app specific chains or L2s and rollups blockchain offerings for infrastructure today do not serve to build a really strong exchange. Exchanges have unique needs. They need really low latency, they need high throughput, and they need to be able to have the optimizations for a decentralized exchange. And a general purpose L1 blockchain doesn't meet that. And that's why we haven't seen DeFi take off in a real way. Because what we need is to be able to do things like you're talking about, Surge, and DeFi and on chain, but make the same performance and execution as you get on a centralized exchange. And DYDX has been a pretty good perpetuals protocol and has taken off as far as kind of the biggest DeFi perps protocol to date. But even DYDX doesn't have the performance that you would need, and it has centralized concerns around its operations. And that's why they're actually deciding to move and build their own L1 on the Cosmos tech stack with their V4 of their product. But the main reason that DEXs haven't taken off, and for specific types of advanced trading like perpetual trading or options or futures markets, things of that nature, is because the performance on chain doesn't allow for the same type of user experience as you would get on a centralized exchange. And that's exactly what the founders, Jay and Jeff of Say, were looking to build, was a perps protocol on chain. And they realized that everywhere they looked didn't provide the right infrastructure to actually build that product. And so then they kind of thought from first principles, what is the biggest need and where can we provide the biggest opportunity? And that was building a layer one blockchain specifically for trading and DEXs. And then that's the first part, right? Performance. And then the other part is user experience. And I would say that many users aren't looking for super high performance or doing advanced trading or futures trading. Maybe they just want to do basic spot trading. And a lot of people that are entering the market come in through a centralized exchange, and they might be novices to crypto and they're getting their feet wet, because oftentimes centralized exchanges or centralized intermediaries are the ones that are the fiat on-ramps, and they provide a really seamless user experience. And I also think that that's something that we can change in DeFi, is making it a lot easier to get hands-on, to custody your own assets, and then be able to trade. It's not that hard to trade on Osmosis, right? And to get your funds into Cosmos Station or Kepler Wallet. But that's not that hard for us, you and I, Serge, because we've been doing this for years and it's like the back of our hand. But for someone that's completely new to the industry, we still need to make better education and make the user experience even more seamless. So I think those are the two reasons that centralized exchanges still have such a large market share and so much activity. But we've seen that market share continues to shrink as we get better infrastructure and we provide better user experiences for noobs and OGs alike.
You know what, Dan? I totally hear you and I totally concur with everything you say, though still, when you say that, one thought keeps on going in the back of my head. And before we get a little bit more into decentralized order books, one thing I have to still ask you, which you kind of already been talking about that, but it's still there. Basically, what you're saying, what I'm hearing at least, right, is that users are ready to give up their security because they don't want responsibility. But isn't that the whole point of decentralization, right? You need the responsibility. And if we are ready to take on more responsibility as users, as human beings, because we're not talking just exchanges, we're talking DAOs, governance, political things, and so on and so forth, then we can get rid of third parties. But by the looks of it, what the market keeps on telling us time after time, starting with Mt. Gox and finishing with FTX, is that users not ready, don't want that responsibility. They would rather, like you say, have good UI, easy on-hand mobile phone application or whatever. And if they have that, they don't care about the security of their own funds. That's what I'm hearing. And that's, to me, a bit saddening, because we are all here to do one thing together, to get rid of those third parties, right? And to say, hey, fuck you guys, let's build DeFi, let's build decentralized finance, right?
Yeah, actually, I would argue against that, Serge. I think trading volume on decentralized exchanges has only continued to increase over the past several years. So the trend is going towards us relying less and less on centralized exchanges and more on self-custody, understanding how to control your own keys, and being able to participate in DeFi. So I think the trend is definitely a one-direction trend. But to your point, centralized exchanges still maintain the majority of the trading volume and are still the biggest in market share. But I would say that we're trending in the right direction. And when you say we, and you say that we should take custody of our own funds and we should learn how to manage our own keys, that's an unrealistic expectation for everyone to do it with the user experience that we have today. Yourself and myself that grew up with the internet and are much entrepreneurial and are looking for technological solutions, this is something that's far more native to us. We need to think out of our own kind of bubble and think about the nearly 8 billion people on the planet. The current system as it's set up with private key management, with onboarding into crypto, is still not good enough to be able to get billions of people using crypto. So either we decide to stay kind of our own little independent bubble and not make for a better user experience and say that if you can't figure it out, like tough luck, or the industry evolves and provides solutions for people that make sense while they can still participate in DeFi, custody their own assets, but we improve the user experience for doing so. I don't think there's a real middle ground there.
I totally agree. I'm just going to leave like one thought here that I would like to share that. And I could give two examples, and I think I'm going to give both of them. One of them is from a song, a punk song, and it's about weapons and about tanks. And one of the lines from that song goes something like, if you translate it to English, something like, there is no place for tanks in the museums as for toys, because then kids would not know of their existence. And I think it's a very good point to what you say. You say, like, in one sense, oh, I think if we were told those things earlier on, and I think this is, of course, an educational problem. And okay, here we come to the whole education issue, right, of the industry and how we communicate with the outside world as the industry. You're right. Of course, this is very biased, what I'm saying. But as somebody who's been using it for so many years, I'll be honest with you, I find it much more difficult to find the simple banking application than Osmosis. And I'm absolutely serious, like no joking around. I think that the banking app on my phone, which is actually a European bank, I don't think it's private information here, but there we go, is a lot worse in terms of UI and a lot more complex because I need two permissions, I need some signatures, some second factor that uses SMS, and it's like, what? It's a whole pain in the ass. Much easier to use a Ledger or Kepler. Of course, this is biased, and I totally agree with you.
I think that's the exception, Serge.
Damn.
I think that's the exception. I think you can measure it in the amount of clicks. I think that the amount of clicks and the understanding that like your assets are on Osmosis, then when you withdraw them, you're withdrawing them to another chain and using a hardware wallet. This is something that you've been doing for years, man. This isn't that something you should expect someone that you meet on the street to be able to do. And so if either we don't evolve and try to create better user experiences and we don't try to create better infrastructure for DeFi to thrive, and we will continue to kind of stay in a niche bubble, or we provide solutions that are better user experiences. And a good analogy too is, and I really like that quote about tanks either being toys or in museums, that we need to embrace them. In the Web2 analog, no one keeps, or very, very few people, and it's a very kind of specific group of people that do this, keep all of their assets in their own custody in their house, specifically like in cash or gold or something stashed away in their own physical possession. That's not how we operate. And there's a huge security liability in doing that. There's someone that could come with a wrench. So that's a huge transition to custodying your own assets when it comes to crypto. So we need to think about how self-custody works, how we can better improve multi-signature usage of our own funds. And we need to get better solutions for that if we're going to, usher in the next billion people into crypto.
Totally. I mean, I agree with it. I do still think that when once a person, and I have seen this many times, I don't think it's that biased, to be honest. I have seen many, many users that have been using crypto for a while, finding it a bit difficult to go back to the banking system and to understand that they need to call somebody, in order to sometimes to put a transaction through. But regardless of all that, Dan, in your opinion, let's move to the next step. Like you say, we need to improve the industry. I totally agree. What is the solutions that you think are applicable here, and what does Say as a blockchain offer in terms of those solutions to users in order to onboard more people to DeFi? If you could talk about that, please, I would be very grateful.
Awesome. No, you're 100% right, Serge. So I first off would say that we're kind of building on the shoulders of giants. I think that Ethereum has been a very net positive for the entire crypto ecosystem and has kind of showed us what the potential are for smart contracts. And things like Uniswap gaining significant traction and actually having greater trading volume than Coinbase for a while shows that people are willing to embrace DeFi. And then layer 2 solutions like Arbitrum and Optimism and eventually ZK rollups are also very positive in helping Ethereum to scale. But I think we're also very much cosmonauts, and we believe that instead of relying on one blockchain that is going to be the centralized hub and can get congested when there's a lot of activity on the chain, or you're losing security when you roll up to a second layer chain, you can have independent blockchains and they can all function and they can scale horizontally as every blockchain can be continually spun up. And I think the Cosmos vision and the thesis is starting to get borne out and getting a lot of traction now. I think when people think of like greater crypto ecosystems and the thriving ones, people think of Ethereum, people think of the Cosmos and the Internet of Blockchains, and people maybe think of a couple others, maybe Avalanche or Solana and some of these. But Cosmos has really solidified itself as, I think, the right infrastructure for kind of where the industry is moving. And where we find ourselves is actually kind of in the middle ground between a general purpose monolithic layer one like a Solana or a Aptos or a Ethereum, and application specific blockchain like Osmosis or DYDX. We find ourselves in the middle, which we consider ourselves a sector specific blockchain. So we're not just a application specific blockchain for one application. We're a general purpose. We're an L1 blockchain that is not general purpose for all use cases, but it's optimized for trading and decentralized finance. And so why is that? Because I mentioned earlier, Serge, building a decentralized exchange now on the current blockchain rails limits the performance and functionality of that application. And we need to change that if we're going to actually bring people off of centralized exchanges, especially for advanced orders. So at Say, we're building a blockchain that is optimized for low latency and fast finality of funds and has optimizations at the chain level for decentralized finance. So we can get into the specifics of those things, but what we're doing is building the infrastructure for DeFi to go from people using AMMs and a basic swap on Uniswap to seeing something actually compete with like Binance or with Wells Fargo or big trading applications that we use in our lives today, and being able to bring that all on chain.
You mentioned Binance there, and I think over the course of the last week, and well, this has been recorded for everybody who is listening just after the FTX crash, because of course, until this will come out, the editing will take a couple of weeks. But obviously right now, the whole Binance success, the Binance throne, not throne, what the right word is, the place in the hierarchy has gone up because, they're deemed to be more secure. What's the success story? Why are they so successful? Why is everybody always mentioning Binance, comparing themselves to Binance? Whether you're decentralized or not, everybody's talking about Binance. What is the big deal with them, in your opinion?
Well, I think that this is nothing new, right? Binance has been an industry leader and giant in crypto really since the exchange took off in late 2017. And I think that they've done a lot of things right. I think CZ has worked to be a good leader, and he's been very vocal in our industry. He's an OG in the industry. I think getting into Bitcoin and trading it in 2013 and built his career through the industry. But Binance is the best infrastructure to date to be able to trade advanced order types like perpetuals or to have futures. And it has the best user experience as far as front end. Like you mentioned earlier, Serge, like a mobile application. These things are so crucial. If we're trying to bring on many users, then we need to adapt and find out how they like to interact and what are the types of applications they're going to use. And mobile has been the biggest push in growth of our industry over the past several years. And Binance has embraced that very effectively. And Binance has built up a lot of funds for a treasury for security and being able to backstop any losses or things they experience on their exchange. So they position themselves well. But what we just talked about at the beginning of this conversation, don't trust, verify, and don't rely on one centralized company, don't rely on one centralized player. We shouldn't be relying on CZ, and we shouldn't be giving all of our trust to Binance. The reason I'm comparing any decentralized exchange to Binance is because Binance provides the best user experience and provides the best performance on an exchange. And so if we're going to get, whether it's advanced traders or normies to use DeFi instead of Binance, we need to be able to match the performance and the user experience that Binance has kind of set the bar really high as an industry standard.
And on that note, you have mentioned that Say is optimized for that. And you mentioned an infrastructure. Can you talk a little bit more, maybe in more specific, on what is that optimization? Is that like actually about the infrastructure? Is that what it's about? Is that why, in your opinion, say could have that advantage as a decentralized exchange, as a decent DeFi protocol?
Yeah, so to my knowledge, the fastest blockchain on the planet to finality right now in our testnet, we are seeing around 600 millisecond blocks. And in a DevNet, we've seen blocks as low as 300 milliseconds. And so we're say is a layer one blockchain built with the Cosmos SDK and Tendermint consensus, but we've highly customized Tendermint consensus to optimize for trading applications. So we've worked on minimizing block times by having optimistic block processing, so validators can process blocks in shorter time. We've worked with Zaki from Inclusion and Sommelier. We've worked with Marco from the ICF, and we worked with Jake Gadikan from Notional, and a lot of other kind of key players in the industry, and giving us feedback as we customize the chain to optimize for the trading. So we've minimized blocks to a 600 millisecond block, and at that you're able to have performance very similar to centralized exchanges, and funds are settled in one block. So funds are settled to finality in 600 milliseconds. And then we've also implemented things that optimize for exchanges. So we have an order matching engine built into the chain. So any exchange that builds on top of Say can leverage that. And there's an order book module, a centralized limit order book module built into the chain, so that any exchange that wants to leverage that order book can also leverage that on their application. So we're building the blockchain specifically for trading and DeFi. And that's where I think that we've seen a lot of traction coming to Say.
One topic that I would love to touch on, at least briefly, talking if we decentralized exchange, is of course MEV, or miner extracted value. And first question, can you elify for everybody what on earth is miner extracted value? Because I think a lot of people hear it, but what is it?
Yeah, MEV, miner extractable value, or maximum extractable value. Essentially, one issue with trading on chain is that everything is transparent. You can see people making orders on chain. And there are validators that will work to see the orders that are happening per block and try to time or place orders based on the orders that are coming in that they're going to validate in that block, to be able to front run potentially the trade and put their bid before the other bid that comes in. And then as the other bid comes in, then put a sell after that and extract value by front running or sandwich attacking these orders. This has been a big issue across all of DeFi, became a big issue within Ethereum, but any decentralized exchange any decentralized trading environment on any blockchain is going to face these issues. And that's something that we're very cognizant of at Say. And we actually have the opinion that not all MEV, not all miner extractable value or maximum extractable value is net negative, but there are types of MEV that are harmful and take value away from users, and especially sandwich attacks or front running. Those are net negative. And so we have built in a module called frequent batch auctioning. And so how this works, Serge, is we've actually in the blockchain we've customized the consensus of the chain so that, let's just say, Serge, you're trading on an exchange built on Say, and it's leveraging frequent batch auctioning, and you want to buy Atom at $15. And you have a limit order to buy Atom at $15, and I want to buy Atom at $14. And within that 600 millisecond block, it has to happen in a very short amount of time. The price of Atom trades both of those numbers. Well, you will be able to get your Atom at $15, and I'll be able to get my Atom at $14 because we both put limit orders up for the price that we were going to buy it at. But the persons that were selling the Atom, if they were the ones taking our orders, so we put the limit orders, so we were the makers, and then the takers would actually get all of the same price. So they would actually get the order filled at $14.50. And you'll never have that much volatility in a 600 millisecond block. But it's a great example of how we've minimized maximum extractable value, MEV, by building in frequent batch auctioning into the chain so that anyone that's providing limit orders are still able to get filled at the prices that they requested. But the takers that are on the other side of the trade are getting filled at an average price per block.
I see. And I was actually going to say that was my second question to you, whether you think that MEV is a bad thing. I mean, it's kind of an opportunity that the DeFi market has created, right? I guess it's a bit hard to say it's a bad thing. It's just some actors can use it in a malicious way. But there is an example of how you guys are actually turning that around. And as far as I know, there is a lot of exchanges, not exchanges, right? But of course, most of the solutions are on the exchanges that are playing around with that to turn around that opportunity. It was like with flash loans, right? I mean, flash loans were like an opportunity, and some people used it to do bad things, and some people didn't use it to do bad things. So it was like a matter of, I guess, what we are all there for.
I'd like to touch on that real quick.
Please do. This was what I was wanted to talk about.
Awesome. So I don't know, Serge, if you know about Skip.money.
No, please tell me.
They're a really impressive team. So they're building a lot of solutions for DeFi across Cosmos, and they're building their own Cosmos app chain specifically to do flash loans and improve MEV. And so we partnered with them, and a few people on their team, Barry and Magmar, are just really, really smart guys. And I think that they recently also closed the funding round, but we partnered with them to implement Skip on Say, and for different protocols or exchanges that want to build on Say can leverage Skip for MEV, and we can customize. They're providing lots of different MEV minimization or execution tools to provide better user experience and better price execution for all traders on exchanges. So just want to give them a shout. We partner with them at Say, and they're providing some of the best kind of solutions to MEV right now. Really, really smart guys.
Nice. We'll definitely maybe look the guys up and try to get them on to talk to them about those things in depth.
Yeah, I recommend that.
Thank you, Dan. Like more or less, the question was on that note, on that level. Well, in that direction, I guess. What do you think in general about all the opportunities or all the situations that DeFi creates, like MEV, like flash loans, and other things? Because a lot of people are very quick to deem them as evil. A lot of people, and a lot of not just outside of the industry. There's a lot of people within the industry actually, and I think people like Sam are a good example where they were like, oh, no, this is really bad. This is why we need centralized exchanges because there we can solve those things and those things don't happen. The question is this: do you think that all those things are really bad, or are they just like opportunities on the market that some people take advantage of, I guess?
The answer is it depends, right? Yeah, I think that if there's a CEO of a large centralized exchange and that person is beating their chest saying that DeFi is all bad and that's the reason that they should all be trading on their exchange, well, I think we should question that person and their intentions and why they have that message. But DeFi provides a lot of unique opportunities, but doing everything on chain also has its inherent challenges, right, Serge? So there's solutions to these challenges. These are not insurmountable, but front running someone's trade, in my opinion, is net negative. It ends up hurting the end user and giving worse price execution while someone is extracting value out of a protocol. That's not a good thing. Or creating an exploit and taking advantage of a DeFi protocol, that's not a good thing. And there's ethical ways to find errors in protocols and trying to right them. And then there's unethical ways of doing it. So there is net negative things that can happen, but like maximum extractable value or minor extractable value, depending on how you define it, MEV is a complicated subject that has net positives and net negatives depending on how it's executed.
I guess, it's one of them like endless questions, and I'm apologizing for, well, I'm not apologizing, but I'm going to be politically incorrect here. It's like running with, if you don't have a leg, but then you become a runner and you put a metal leg in, a robotic leg. Is that fair or is that unfair? Because you kind of become quicker than the person with legs. And, it's kind of the same thing. We're seeing like, oh, there is an opportunity to do something that other users don't see, but I can see that opportunity and I will go and do it. But of course, I agree with you. If I'm a CEO of a centralized exchange, then is it very fair that I'm using that opportunities and hiding it from everybody else? I guess one thing is when everybody sees the opportunities and then I'm the first one to take that opportunity on. But another thing is where nobody sees those opportunities and then I'm still exercising my power to use those opportunities. I understand where you're coming from, definitely. Dan, one thing you mentioned is middle ground between Ethereum and Cosmos. And of course, we at Citizen Cosmos have long been fans of not just Cosmos, but then we've been talking about it. We've been for over a year, for much longer, I've been saying that we will interview guests from Ethereum. And we have episodes recorded with Gitcoin, with a lot more other projects like DarkFi and so on and so forth. But that middle ground in the last few months has seemed to become very popular, especially with Bankless recording and then Unchained. And do you think that middle ground, Ethereum, Cosmos, is that the way that, in your opinion, the blockchain scene is going to develop? Like we're going to have finally, are we going to see different ecosystems talk to each other? And are we finally going to see not just talk to each other over a bridge, because that's been happening for more than a year, more than two actually. But I mean, communities really working together and really putting beneath their, axis of war and saying my blockchain is bigger than yours. And hey, let's work together and build something together. Do you think that's finally going to happen and we're going to see that in the near future?
When you say these ecosystems kind of merge or come together, I guess it depends on what you mean by that, right? I think that there's kind of this whole narrative, right? Like after Ethereum came, that there are all these like competitive layer ones, and they define themselves as like Ethereum killers. And initially that was like Neo, which was AntShares, the Chinese Ethereum. And obviously that didn't take off, and there was Ontology. They kind of positioned themselves as a direct competitor to take away market share from Ethereum. I don't think Cosmos has ever really positioned itself as that. It's a different approach to smart contracts where layer ones can seamlessly interoperate and communicate, but are all independent blockchains versus having kind of one monolithic chain that everything settles to and the different applications built on top. But I do think that, to your point, Serge, the visions are getting a lot more aligned. And that's why Sunny and Zaki are speaking on Bankless and talking to the guys that are kind of like big Ethereum homers, because the visions are starting to come together, right? Whereas Cosmos is thinking about unite like a universe of independent blockchains that all interoperate and kind of like an internet or the Cosmos. And then Ethereum is thinking about one secure chain that everything settles to, but then you're having layer 2 rollups that optimize more for scalability and throughput. The ideas of the blockchain trilemma and kind of how to come to the unique solutions of them are starting to converge. Whereas how funds are settled and what is the like ultimate like data availability and settlement layer have kind of different perspectives. The idea of how it's all executed is starting to coalesce. So I think that we'll see Ethereum continue to thrive in that ecosystem. And I think the Cosmos Internet of Blockchains ecosystem will continue to thrive. And we do have, like you said, bridges and ways that the two kind of ecosystems can communicate right now. But we'll see if something like Ethereum was able to natively implement like IBC. I think that's where like the opportunity gets even way larger.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I mean, I've seen some teams in Polkadot working on native IBC, and there's some progress in there as well. And I think I've seen it on somewhere else, but definitely in Polkadot, and definitely there was another mention of that.
Yeah, Near is implementing IBC.
Near, definitely Near.
OKX has their own blockchain. The OKB, that's implementing IBC. And there's several teams, like several ecosystems that are looking to implement IBC. And I think that over time, IBC is going to become a really important development standard for interoperability.
It's amazing. Feeling that we were there, knowing that we are all here right now. Yeah, it was Near. I was thinking Near and Polkadot are the ones I was thinking of. And of course, Near, by the way, has been talking about implementing it completely on a protocol level, as far as I understand, right? But I might be getting something wrong here. Please do not take my word on that. Dan, what about, and my usual suspects of things, of as in, feel free to answer or not, but that's what I usually say. What are your thoughts still on decentralized VPN solutions? And I'm going to be putting you down on the spot. And again, I can understand totally if you refuse to answer or you cannot answer for some reason. I mean, considering a lot of our listeners are in the Cosmos ecosystem, and Sentinel has been a big project for a long time, and a lot of us have been around it. Would love to hear if you are able to give your personal opinion on DVPN as a solution in general, and on Sentinel as and what's going on with them, because not much has been heard over the past year or so, really, from the project. And I would love to hear more, to be honest.
I'm still very passionate about privacy solutions. And I really think that we need to have self-sovereignty online. And everything I've talked about in your past podcasts still are completely true for me. And I think that the architecture of having individual residential nodes offer their bandwidth and be able to receive income for doing so while hosting their node on the blockchain is a really great design. And I think that it's a great use case for blockchain. Very bullish on that architecture and that development. And I always will be. And Sentinel as a project, myself and our whole team at Exidio decided to leave working on Sentinel at the beginning of this year. And I also publicly shared that with the Sentinel community. And things did not work out with the Sentinel Foundation. And if they weren't going to support kind of the development and continued work, then we decided that we are very talented and we have a lot of energy and enthusiasm. We want to continue to drive the crypto industry forward. So we want to put our time and energy in places where we're going to be able to make a big impact. So we decided to go in our independent directions. And if you don't know Peter, that was the COO at Exidio. He's leading operations as a COO at Archway, which is another important project in the Cosmos ecosystem. And several of the teammates at Exidio are now working at Say. And so we've all kind of continued to develop our individual paths and are continuing to build out in the Cosmos and realize the Cosmos vision. So we decided to bring our talents to places where we can make the biggest impact.
And what about decentralized order books for bandwidth? Are we going to see that, big specific blockchains just for putting bids on different bandwidth from different nodes connected to the blockchain? Are we going to see that one day?
Well, I mean, that is the design for Sentinel right now, right? Like all the different nodes are offering their node at different prices.
Yeah, yes.
George, if you're going to offer bandwidth at a price and you want to have a really high price, you might get more or less users depending on the price that you set. So yeah, it is kind of already a marketplace for bandwidth.
I was just thinking, to be honest, like a lot of the times we work on different projects, but at the end of the day, you're kind of trying to solve the same things, just trying to make things more resilient, right? When it comes to blockchain, DeFi, and a lot of those solutions in their goals are very similar, right? Just to take out the middleman, make it more resilient, try to take out the surface, more as much as possible surface attacks.
And self-sovereignty.
Yeah, self-sovereignty. There is censorship and self-sovereignty, of course. To talk about those things, the more the better. I mean, of course, the less censorship, the better. Not the more censorship, the better.
We'll keep raging against the system.
Rage against the machine. Damn right.
Yes, sir.
Damn right. Dan, going back, though, to say one more thing I did want to ask you about is the name. And of course, there is the Facebook thing, right? And there is Say. They are not the same.
So when you're saying the Facebook thing, you're talking about the blockchains that have been built of some of the developers coming from Facebook. And those two blockchains are building on the Move language. And those are Aptos and Sui. So Aptos and then Sui's SUI.
Right. Okay.
And Say is SEI. So similar spellings, but we came up with Say before Sui had gained any traction or before it was established. And when I say we, I mean Coney Daddy. Coney Daddy was the initial guy that came up with the idea of Say as we were exploring lots of different ideas and getting kind of creative input. So yeah, he's the man. And I think he's going to start getting a lot more active here in crypto in a while. I know he's taking kind of a personal break and he got married and had some big personal development. So a lot of happiness for him. But yeah, so Say is actually the name, and you can Google it, of one of the fastest whales in the ocean. It's a deep sea whale. And so that really aligns with kind of what we're building at Say. We are building a blockchain for deep liquidity and better trading experiences on chain. And we're doing it with fast execution and being able to match the user experience that you get on centralized exchanges. So it's really about speed of execution and quality of execution with like deep liquidity and being able to trade with size.
I didn't know about the whale thing, considering a few of my friends are oceanologists and I live on the ocean. And next to me, there is like some whale routes. I think I should be ashamed of myself. And
get up on your whale education, sir.
I know, man. If any of my friends are listening to this, I'm really, really sorry. I will brush up on my whales. About Coney Daddy, it's ironic because we recorded the episode with him. I think it was literally days before he was getting married.
Nice.
And then he disappeared. And I was like, damn, what did I do? Like, where is the man? Where is the man? When is he coming back to the? Are you gonna do you know something and tell us when is he coming back? Do you have a date for us?
No one can get away from crypto too long.
I love that answer.
The Cosmos always brings you back.
Well, Connie Daddy, if you can hear us, we'll all miss you. We'll all need you out here in Cosmos, so come back to us. Dan, going back to Say, though, and to decentralized exchanges and is talking about like app-specific blockchains. Well, you mentioned sector-specific, but this is kind of like, I guess, to resume what we spoke about, the whole vision of app-specific blockchains. In your opinion, how deep can that go? And what I mean by that is we have like Say, which is an order book, basically. Can that go deeper in terms of levels? Are we going to see a blockchain not for order book, but I don't know, only for buy bids? Now, I know it's crazy, but can that go even further, the rabbit hole? Or is that like the app specific we're talking about is what you guys are doing? Well, sector specific.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even say that it's being too prescriptive by saying that Say is an order book chain. We built an order book module into the blockchain, but this is a blockchain. It's a layer one blockchain optimized for trading. So there will be automated market makers on Say. There will be hybrid AMMs and order book exchanges. There will be perps. There will be futures. There will be lending. We're building out a complete DeFi ecosystem. And actually, there have been 90 teams that have committed to building and launching their protocols on Say. And that goes across the gamut of different types of protocols on DeFi. And these are teams coming from Solana. These are teams coming from Near. These are teams coming from Polkadot, teams coming from Terra that we're building in Terra, teams that are native Cosmos teams that are coming up and launching new products, teams that have already deployed on other Cosmos chains and are going to deploy their protocol on Say. So we're looking to build a robust DeFi ecosystem so that you can think of it more like the DeFi ecosystem that's on Ethereum, but with better speed and better execution and better optimizations for these applications. And then to your point, Serge, like if Say is more kind of like a general purpose or monolithic layer one compared to a very specific app chain, it's more in the middle and occupies more of the composability that you would get from like a layer one and the ecosystem built on top of it, then there are opportunities for layer 1.5s. So these are more specific optimizations that can be made for applications. So you could have like a layer 1.5 for predictions markets. And actually that was just announced and they're building on Say, which is called Cargo. And so if you want to build a very specific product like a predictions market, but you are very specific about football within Portugal, and you want to make a predictions market on the Portuguese football league, and only you have that kind of context, and you're really interested in that like subgenre, and you have like, it's almost like a subreddit, right? Like you have that unique community, and you want to build a predictions market for that, you can build that and build it on top of Cargo, which is the layer 1.5 for predictions markets. So Cargo doesn't pretend to be an expert on all the different gamut of different types of predictions markets across anything in the world. It could be politics. It could be your own neighborhood. It could be sports. It could be trends in the healthcare industry. The applications are too far and wide, and they're not experts in all of those. They're building a infrastructure module, a layer 1.5, to be able to build predictions markets on top of it. So to your point, yeah, I do think that there will be more specific kind of middleware layers for direct use cases.
Definitely. I think if we look at the IT industry, we can see that that's computing. I mean, that's how it develops. So it become completely modular, and it is still becoming more modular as we progress. One last question, and then like a blitz, and I promise I'm gonna let you go. I promise. When airdrops, sir?
There will be an airdrop for the Say blockchain, and there's several ways that you can get Say tokens. One is if you're staking Atom. One is if you're staking the Solana token. One is if you're a part of Terra and holding Terra before the collapse or right after the collapse. So there have been several announcements that have come out on airdrops. But then another way that you can start earning Say tokens is by participating in our testnet. So we have the Saynami testnet, which is an incentivized testnet. We've actually committed to, the Say Foundation has committed 1% of the total supply of Say tokens for participants that are continuing to stress test the network and get involved and build the network. And there's been over 70,000 unique wallets that have joined the Say testnet, the Saynami testnet, and partake missions and help to stress test the chain and get involved in using protocols that have launched on the Say blockchain that are going to be going live on our mainnet. And then you can also get involved by being a part of the growing ambassador community. Shout out to everyone that's participating in Atlantis. So everyone is trying to get to the Mecca that is Atlantis, and we're all growing and kind of evolving in this DeFi ecosystem. And this is an international growth program where people that want to kind of level up and get experiences in Web3 and kind of grow their career in the crypto space can take on more responsibility, get recognition from the team, even get shout outs and retweets from Say main account, and kind of build up their skill set and continue to get promoted through the program to the point where they actually get full-time jobs in Web3. And there's jobs within the Say ecosystem and there's jobs across. We're seeing kind of a very flourishing DeFi ecosystem, and a lot of it's happening in Say, and I'm excited about that. We have over 100,000 active members in our Discord. I think there's over 70,000 now following on Twitter. And Atlantis is growing. There's over 1,000 people that are participating in Atlantis and want to continue to grow in Web3. So there's lots of ways to get involved and ways to earn Say tokens. If you have questions, hit me up. But I'm pretty stoked about what we're building. And the community, I think, is seeing a lot of the traction starting to come together.
Definitely, guys, if you're listening out to this, reach out and check out those opportunities for sure. There will be links throughout the episode and where we will promote it, so you can contact Dan if you have questions. I guess not, maybe not Dan, but if you have reached to Dan, then cool. And Dan is reachable. I do know that. He's a real human being, and definitely the community channels as well. Dan, since we've done the Blitz with you several times already, and of course, I mean, things change, but I have asked you those questions before already. But I will ask you one thing out of those three questions, because I've asked you two of them before. So I'm not going to ask you them again, but it will be like this one I didn't ask you. Is there any one person out there, in your opinion, doesn't have to be from crypto necessarily, that you would recommend for everybody to follow in order to succeed in doing what they're doing, whether it's self-realization, whether it's building some product, or whether it's anything else? Somebody that could be inspiring, in your opinion, and help anyone to achieve, doesn't matter what it is.
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. That's a deep one. I think that if you're looking for like spiritual development, there's a lot of really good people that are kind of like pushing that forward. I think Tara Brach is someone that I really love. She's a spiritual leader and a meditator and has a very positive message. So I highly recommend looking her up, and we should put some of her website and information in the show notes. And then in the crypto ecosystem, I know he's running a fund, but I think that he has very wise takes and is kind of a leader. That'd be Ari David Paul, and he leads Block Tower. But I think that, as a fund manager and as kind of just a broader perspective on the crypto space, he takes a very mature stance and is definitely someone that's very wise for his age. And then I think Vitalik is a great steward of our industry. And if you're not following Vitalik and reading his blogs, that's something you definitely should be doing as you're growing in crypto.
I think that was a very, very good advice. Actually, we will definitely check the Block Tower guy, because I haven't heard of him. Dan, thank you very, 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 very much once again. And I have to say it. Let's do it again.
I love it, man. This is great. Serge, props on all that you're growing with Citizen Cosmos. We're going to continue to grow. The Cosmos continue to grow, and you better be at Cosmoverse next time. I'm not going on if you don't commit to going on Cosmoverse. I'm quitting the show.
I promise.
All right. We'll see you there, man.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Join next time.
Cheers.
This content was created by the Citizen Cosmos Validator. If you enjoyed it, please support us by delegating to Citizen Cosmos and help us to create more educational content.